Progress with what?
Mainly just making sure getting the wrist more cupped here. I was getting super bowed on the way back.
This is big. This is exactly what I wanted you to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay. This guy and I, and I think this is big because if you have to cater the instruction to the player. If somebody heard what Eli just said, they're gonna maybe stop watching and be like, "Oh wait, cupped wrist, man, I don't want that." No, Eli needed to feel a cupped wrist, and I'm gonna let you explain why. Why did you need to feel a cupped wrist?
I was on the way back, like mainly right in here. I was getting super cupped, and the club face would be shut.
So you were actually getting bowed. I'm sorry. I'm just
bowed.
Yeah, bowed. Exactly.
Sorry, bowed. And I was getting bowed here, and then as I would go far back, it would stay like this, and then I would not only drop it under a little bit, I would also be coming into impact shut, and then I'd flip it over and hit like a 10-yard draw with a wedge in my hand.
Exactly. That's exactly what's happened. He hit a lot of right shots. So show him again. It would be bowed, and then it would be inside and shut. It would get a little bit like this, and then it would drop kind of, the club would fall that way because the weight of the club was in his left hand. And all we worked on was keeping his right wrist more cupped, which actually, for him, keeps the club more in front of him and actually keeps the left wrist flatter, or I'm sorry, right wrist flatter.
Oh, yeah.
So what we'll do today is we'll take some videos and watch, what he interprets as a cupped wrist. I'd be shocked if he actually has it even moderately cupped. It's going to be pretty darn flat. Maybe even just less bowed. Okay, but what's great is it's neutralizing it. All right, ready? Right hand version. So for Eli, the club was getting behind him when it was bowed. Behind him. You can see it's behind my body, so we had to flip it. Now, ready for this? A little more cupped, kept that club more in front of his body and kept that wrist in a nice position to where he didn't feel like he had to manipulate anything through impact. We'll talk to Eli today about how to hinge it perfectly, but if we want to get to the nitty-gritty of what that takeaway needs to be, let's do it for the viewer, and it is good for you to know. So go ahead and set up right there. We're going to have this line here. It's a little old school Porzak golf stuff. All right. Now, with the goal being to, sorry, Kev, come back around this way, actually. With the goal being to, at checkpoint 1 right here, when the club's parallel to the ground, have that club down that yellow line. Our goal is understanding this. And now, Kev, come at this 45-degree mark. Eli is going to set the club on that line. That's the direction he's setting the club. Now, if you compare that with a turn, what happens? Right to that spot.
Yeah.
So 50% of this is the hinge, 50% of it is the turn. It's not hinge then turn, it's not turn then hinge.
Yeah.
It's blending it together. What I love about this, that's just defining how much hinge is happening and in what direction it's happening. So come back over here, Kev, I want to show you this right here.
So for me, it's here. Like
exactly.
I feel it's more of like here and then a turn to it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So for Eli, go ahead and set this up. If he hinged it straight up this line, that would actually be a cupped lead wrist. Do you see that? Like in Kev, you come in here close, bud, so the viewer can see that. See, that's a cupped lead wrist, right? Now watch this. If he hinges it down this line, that's a really bowed lead wrist. But if he hinges it on this line, that just flattens his lead wrist, and you pair that with a turn. Look, he's just dead flat throughout his swing now. So Eli, I wanted you to see that. So one thing that my mentor used to do with me, he used to put that rod from the heel of my foot kind of across my toe, and he wanted me to keep the club in that direction as I turned. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
Oh, dude, that was great. That was great. And the only other thing that I consistently remind you of, buddy, is to keep your left elbow low. Yeah. Only reason, when he keeps that elbow a little lower, it eliminates the extra arm swing at the top, which then helps him rotate right back through impact and not have to wait for his arms to catch back up. Dude, I mean, that couldn't be much better.
I don't think it can. I was hit really
There's
well.
no, like, cupping of the wrist.
No.
It's just less bowed.
It really doesn't even feel,
flat.
to me, it's not even feeling very cupped now.
Good. So pure right there.
It is really good.
That's so good right there.
And
on a side note, Eli's hitting it well right now. So
they are, I mean, that's coming off really well.
It's coming off really well. It's really, so we'll explain what happens again when you get it inside and shut.
So when it gets inside and shut here, and then it kind of starts to go up this way, and then it will drop under, and then it's just, I'm stuck, and it just ends up getting flipped, and then I'll leave it.
Yeah, long clubs he'll leave out to the left, right, and then all of a sudden his his little shorter ones he'll tug, because the shorter one catches up with him where the longer one lags behind, and he doesn't have time, he can't flip it enough, and it just stays out left. But we're just trying to get his swing not dependent upon that flip at all. We have some players that we talk to that we tell, hey, maybe you need to work on flattening the wrist. We don't ever tell them to bow it because we don't want them to turn the knuckles down and take the club right inside. We tell them to hinge it more at that 45-degree angle right here that keeps the wrist flat.
Yeah.
Right? But most of our players, believe it or not, we actually have to remind them to keep it a little bit more cupped. I would say that's the majority of our players because, with the connection, the cup just to them means keeping the club in front of them right here and just turning. And a lot of times with just that connection of just turning, the weight of the club flattens the wrist at the top of the swing. It doesn't actually get cupped like this. This is the line of our feet, and that's that line that we were talking about we wanted to hinge it on, right? Now watch. Forget the golf club. Watch my hands. My hands are going back down that line. Do you see that? Because they're going to be connected to my body's turn right there. I'm not going to move my hands out there to keep the club out.
Yeah.
That is a huge mistake that many make. They try to keep the club out in front of